Comfortable? These chairs have nearly killed several people, so I just want to make sure.
It's a matter of balance.
Make sure you're.
They have their own mind.
They did. Are you all right?
I'm fine.
Okay. So, you know, you've seen some of Fabrice's work out in the gallery. You're going to see Billy's work on Thursday during the day, and let's start a little bit with that. Let's start a little bit about the issue of the arts and climate change. The story is so important. It's literally the biggest story on the planet. That's why we're starting here. And clearly there's an issue of raising awareness, motivating action from people. And of course, when you want to motivate action, you want to reach people inside, and that's where the arts come in. What got you on this track?
Well, I grew up in Africa and lived in between Europe and the States for 20 years. And when I got back to the continent 6 years ago, I realized how much trash there were around. And also that the new generation, they didn't know how it was before. So I tried to think like, I know that the power of art is that it speaks directly to the heart and the soul. And that's really something that we should use. So I was thinking like, how could I reach these kids and create some awareness, some environmental awareness? So I came up with the idea of putting together tradition, culture, and beliefs. So in West Africa, even so, Africans would be Christians or Muslims, they're all animists. They believe in spirits. So what I did is that I created a tale. I invented a tale, which is like Mother Earth is waking up one morning sick because it took her millions of years to create an environment where humans, her children, could live, breathe, love, admire what is surrounding them. And suddenly, in the space-time of 100 to 150 years, we're destroying what took millions of years to be created. So what Mother Earth decided is to send her genes, her spirits, down to Earth, to have them appear to the humans and deliver a message of awareness and empowerment. So each one of the spirits would represent a different issue, and we created a costume that was directly connected to the issue and photographed the spirit on a site that was about that specific issue.
And I don't know if you've spent any time out there looking at these images, but they are absolutely stunning. Each one of them is cinematic. It's a movie. It tells a great tale. But the interesting thing is that you turn to Mother Earth and the reaction of Mother Earth, and that's at the center of what you are doing too. And maybe you can talk a little bit about the origins of the Way of the Rain, which all of you will see on Thursday.
Yeah, I tried to make this story short. It really began in my childhood. You know, I grew up on a farm for the first 6 years of my life, and I enjoyed the freedom, you know, being with animals, trees, running around barefoot. And I grew up, I have to say, in post-war Germany, so a lot of the cities were still rebuilt, so there was not a lot of city life, but eventually it changed. And so my family decided to move into the city because my father would have a better job. And that was, for me, really difficult. I could not understand why suddenly my life would be so restricted. And so that was, for me, the first time, actually, that nature had been taken away from me. And so what I did, I created nature through art and painting and sketches in my room and surrounded myself with trees and animals that I had lost. So later on, I became, so the environment, nature always has been a really, really important force to guide me as an artist. And so I became sort of an environmental, nature-oriented artist and created a lot of single exhibitions, installations, just to point out how endangered our Earth is and tried to open discussion. It was kind of difficult because as a sole voice, I felt I was heard in the moment, but it didn't get me anywhere to reach a wider audience. And so this is when I received this idea to once I was working actually in New Mexico. The high desert in New Mexico is very dependent upon monsoon rains. And these monsoon rains are usually in the summer, and they are extremely important to, collect water for these regions throughout that year. And I decided at that time to work with watercolor, and somehow something led me to go out there and catch raindrops on this watercolor paper. So I became kind of a collaborator with nature. A few years later, we had a drought. The monsoon rains became very shy, so we were really all worried, water restrictions. And I felt it's really time to create a stronger voice, to point out and to open up consciousness how important our Earth is and how important the balance on our Earth is. So the way of the rain stands for the imbalance of rain. So either we have no rain at all or we have too much. So now we have drought, we have floods. So I also know, and if I'm too long, please stop me.
Everybody seems very interested.
Thank you. So it seems to me that scientific data doesn't make us realize how endangered our planet is. And I feel the arts are a very important language, always have been. The arts have been language since human existence. It began with cave paintings, petroglyphs, and it made us all understand, even if we were not from the same tribe or the same community, but we would see these paintings and we would understand who has been here, what have they been doing. And so I think the arts is extremely important to, and I think one is able with the arts because you can really touch people. And I think people need to be touched. I don't think we want to look at anything horrible or disastrous anymore. We're so numbed out. We want to look at beauty, or we want to look and experience something that touches us in any kind of way. So this is what we are trying to do with this art performance, The Way of the Rain. And it's a multidisciplinary performance where I created massive silk panels that are printed originals of rain paintings. And these silk panels represent falling water from the heavens, rain, basically. So I'm wearing a little rain scarf right here. So then we tell the story of Earth. It's a beautiful story because if you realize what a phenomenon that is we live on, and a gift that has given to us that we are able to occupy. Look at waterfalls, birds, lakes, oceans, flowers. All of these things are so amazing, and we take them so for granted because this is how we grew up, and we know it's always there, or we believe it's always there. So within this piece, we celebrate Mother Earth, and its four universal elements. So the Way of the Rain begins with the Big Bang Theory, where...
Well, don't give away too much.
Okay.
Because they have to see it.
We want to have a surprise left. Okay.
So you want some, and there are some surprises, believe me.
Oh yeah, they are.
Yeah.
Okay.
Let's talk a little bit about Project Vortex.
Sure. Robson.
Pardon me?
Robson. Not Robinson. Just.
No, I said Project Vortex.
I know. I just.
There earlier.
Yeah, it said Robinson, but
okay.
Anyway.
I apologize. Hi. How are you?
I'm so happy to be here. I'm really glad that this initiative is happening right now. I think it's so important. So thank you. Project Vortex, after a number of years of working, actually intercepting the waste stream as my primary medium and working specifically with toxic waste that people don't realize is toxic, and seeing what it's doing to our marine environments in particular, plastic debris is becoming a bigger and bigger problem, especially all over Asia. Coastal communities are having to process this material that is bombarded upon them. And recognizing the reason it's such a problem is that it has archival integrity. So it's great as an art material, but terrible for the environment. And so few artists around the world are actually engaging in intercepting this material and using it as material for art-making processes. And the reason why that's so important is because this material photodegrades when it's left in the natural environment. And this process takes a very long time. And what happens is it breaks down into smaller and smaller particles that not only are made with toxic plasticizers, things like bisphenol A and bisphenol S, which has replaced bisphenol A and is probably just as bad, but plankton are ingesting this. When you have plankton ingesting plastics that are absorbing the toxins in the water and made with toxins, you're suffocating the creatures that provide 50% of our oxygen. And scientists are estimating that by 2050, we'll have more plastic than fish in our oceans. So how that affects climate change and oxygen levels and ocean temperatures is a bit of a daunting and alarming issue. So through my work, I've been trying to do similar to what you've been doing, Sybil, which is create awareness around it, create a global network of other artists and designers and architects who are working with plastic debris to help support each other, because it becomes horribly depressing very easily the more you learn about this insidious material and how much we trust it and how little FDA is testing it and making sure it's safe for consumption. So Project Vortex is an international sort of network that I've been slowly forming in addition to my own practice. And it's designed to help use these art-making practices to support conservation efforts and create a bigger culture of creative stewardship around plastic pollution in particular because of its toxicity and all the misconceptions around it.
Okay, so, there seems to be a horrific paradox. The things that we've created to be ephemeral are permanent, and they in turn help take the things that we would hope would be permanent and make them ephemeral, and put the world at risk. As artists, you identify this problem and you hold it up, and you do so with great power. But what's the impact? Is there an impact? What's been the reaction to your work that leads you to believe that the work is of value?
Like I was saying before, I think we really have to use this weapon of art as a thing that talks to the heart. So whenever I create something, it's like a big question mark, and I'm inviting everyone to the conversation. The thing that we have, we live in a real paradox here, because we want unlimited growth in a limited planet. And until we realize that this system cannot work anymore, we have to change it. And we're getting here a unique chance, which is that we need to change for our survival. The planet doesn't care. I mean, the Earth will still be there after humans if we keep on destroying it because we believe that everything is money. Everything can be changed into money. Then one day we won't be able to breathe anymore. What are we going to do with that money? So with the system that we're creating, we're not going to go anywhere. But if we really get the masses' interest for the planet, the real issues that we have in now, we can change things.
And are you getting the interest? I mean, literally, what is the reaction to your work? Are you showing it in West Africa? Are you showing it? Is it generating publicity and giving you a sense that there is positive movement resulting from it?
It is generating a lot of conversation, and I think that's where it starts. And that's why I believe the thing that we also forget is that the whole planet is looking toward the Western world because we live in a civilization of the Western world right now. But there's so much we can learn from our history. There's so much we can learn from our tradition. If you look at the Native Americans in America, they are the ones who are protecting the water for the whole Americans. The Aborigines, they're protecting the Australia for the whole Australian. So there's something like we forgot about what we've learned, and we got into a circle like we always reproducing the same mistakes. Like we have a problem, okay, we're building walls, all kind of walls. walls between people, physical walls. When there's, here we have an issue that we really need to come together to get over it. So I think we have a chance. We have a big chance here. And I think the key point is to really get as many people as possible involved into that issue.
You know, there's something that resonates from what you said with what the story that Mohammed told earlier about climbing up the palm tree and saying that's bad for the tree. And one of the things that I notice in Aboriginal societies that live in nature, is that they revere nature, they worship nature, and they have kind of social rules about the preservation of nature. So if you're in the South Pacific, there are very clear rules about forestry, cutting down a tree, how you manage it, because you know on your island there's a very limited amount of resources. In Aboriginal Australia, it's a central issue when there's very limited resources. In the Southwest, American indigenous people have similarly done that. Has that informed your work?
Absolutely. I think it began also in my childhood because my parents loved to travel, and so we traveled all, I was born in Europe and in Germany, but I think mainly in Morocco. Morocco was a big influence to me because it's such an interesting country of all these different religions and cultures, and they live very peaceful together. But that introduced me to ceremonies, rituals, and I learned, these older cultures, they give back, through their rituals and their traditions, ceremonies. And our Western society has totally lost that. We don't do that, we just take. And, so I learned somehow you have to always give back. Whatever you grab from the earth, you have to give something back. And sadly, we lost that connection. And so, yes, so I was able to learn about the oldest culture in the United States, which is the Hopi Indian culture. And they have been living on that land in the United States in the south, I think it's the eastern part and the southwest, for over thousands of years, 2,000 of years. And so they have been, and they still do, celebrate these old traditions, and they are farmers in a very arid land. And because of these ceremonies, they create a certain power, and we think in our minds, this is all woo-woo, this is crazy. But there is a connection that we have to the bigger picture, which is universal. It's the universe, actually. And so because we have lost that, we are neglecting Earth. We are neglecting, actually, ourselves, because we are such a big part of this creation. And even us is the same phenomenon as this Earth. And we are neglecting ourselves with whatever we do to hurt this beautiful planet. And I believe through art, education, and the input of science, maybe in a more open, convenient way. Science can be very complicated, and so we shy away to listen to that. But if we can all connect and introduce the bigger picture, which is this Earth is out there in this universe. There's nothing left, right, or on the top or on the bottom. This is the only home we have. There's nothing else there. There's no way or where for us to escape. And so if we can bring that to children and educate them and teach them the bigger picture and not only look at the devastation that we are creating, but look at the beauty we have, the beauty we are. And that is important to preserve and prolong our existence.
Okay, so yes, I think that's let's hear it for the planet Earth, folks. Hey, Stephanie, could you bring one of those catch boxes over here? So I want to go to questions from each of you. We've got about 10 minutes left. But let me ask a question you're not supposed to ask an artist. Artists, you talk about inspiration, you talk about technique sometimes, but we don't talk about metrics. When we talk about art for social change or art to improve the planet, metrics matter, right? It matters not, it's one thing to do something beautiful, but you're trying to produce an outcome. Do you have metrics?
I do. I think about that all the time. I've been working a lot with, well, just thinking about what Mariette Westerman said earlier in terms of art and trash being the two types of residue that we're leaving behind, and how, if we could create adequate infrastructure and a model for global cultural communication that integrates issues of waste management and environmental creative stewardship, and thinking about it in non-hierarchical terms. I was really moved by what Liz Lerman said last night when she was, doing this physical gesture.
No one was ever going to forget this.
So it was so perfect
Right.
because we all, have to think about ourselves and our personal and our specific initiatives. And then we should really also be factoring in the platform that provides us the opportunity to even engage in these cultural dialogues, which is the planet. So I've been working a lot with conservation groups who are doing river and shore cleanups, and schools, academic institutions to try to implement creative stewardship programming to help expand that network. And I hope that maybe this global cultural dialogue can integrate more sustainability moving forward.
Well, I think one of the things to talk about in the workshops is ways to help artists understand metrics, ways to help artists work with NGOs, ways to find ways to translate art into action, if that's one of the objectives.
I wonder if potentially bringing the sciences to the next summit might be something to consider in order to encourage that type of intersection between the arts and sciences, which are both under attack in the Western world with our current administration.
I think that's a really, really interesting and powerful idea. Yeah. Now, none of you are shy, so surely there are some. All of a sudden, everybody is shy. No. All right. Let me go back here. I'm not going to throw this at you, but go ahead.
Hi, my name is Ravinder Kaul. I'm from India, Kashmir, the Indian part of Kashmir. And I want to this is a very important discussion, and thank you so much for bringing this discussion to the Culture Summit and what we can do as artists. You see, we have some wonderful traditions. I want to just inform you, three short points. One is that when there was an infant and you, for the first time, removed the hair of that infant, there was a ritual ceremony, and they would take those locks, the hair, and then put a walnut in it and then bury it in the earth. And after some time, there would be a walnut tree there. Second, during winters, when there was snow all around, there were so many days when you were supposed to make rice and put it on your rooftop so that the birds could feed from that, because there was snow everywhere and not much to eat. Third, every time that you would take rice, you take rice with your hands, and before taking it yourself, you pick up a handful of rice and make it a ball of it and keep it on the side for the dogs. Not your own dog, but the stray dogs. So every time, if there are 5 people in the family, five those balls of rice would go to the. While we have forgotten all those traditions, which were good for our environment, because our ancestors probably learned to live with their environment at peace with their environment and the animals and the birds. But now we have forgotten those wonderful things, and we have retained what was worst in those. I think artists can revive those traditions through their performances and remind people how wonderful our traditions were.
I think that's an interesting point, and it goes back to the earlier panel on cultural preservation. Sometimes cultural preservation is not just about saving a building. It's about saving an idea, a cultural idea that has a consequence. Do any of you want to talk about that? You don't have to.
I think the traditional aspect is very important. Like, from my own experience, I've heard a lot of stories of NGOs coming to Africa, for example, and they have a lot of money, and they know what they want to do. They want to do this, and this is good. This is going to be good for you. But there's something that forget is that when you get to another word, you have to sit and watch first. And try to understand the language, try to understand the traditions, try to understand what is important to these people. So it has to be an exchange, you know? Yeah, for example, us in the south part of this planet, we speak English, we speak French, so we already own the culture from the Western world. But what does the Western world knows about every time I hear about Africa, it's like, oh, Africa, I want to go to Africa. What is Africa? I mean, Africa is 54 countries. There's as many differences between someone from Côte d'Ivoire and Senegal than between a Spanish and a German. But it's still like we're in 2017 and it's still like the dark continent, you know? No one really knows what's going on there. And I think it's really important to, this issue of the environment, this environmental issue gives us an opportunity to get together finally, because this is for our sake of all of us together. And when people ask me about this project, they say, oh, so it's like that in Senegal. Oh, la, la. No, it's not like that in Senegal. This is the planet that is like that, you know? Yeah. And the air that is polluted in China, we breathe it in Africa. You breathe it in America. You know, so that's how came to me the idea, because I started in Senegal and I said, okay, so I guess I have to go global, because if there's so many different traditions, but if every time you go somewhere, you try to understand the tradition and use that to exchange with the people through pictures for myself. To me, it's a way of creating that community, that human community. You know,
it's a powerful point, and. You know, we talked about universals earlier. What is more universal than the issue of the environment? We've got 2 minutes, so a 30-second question. But if he's quick, maybe we'll get over there too. But be quick.
My name is Jesse. I'm from the Netherlands. I teach at NYU Abu Dhabi. For me, I feel climate change is so urgent that we cannot only talk about our own practices and how and that. In 2015. 195 countries, maybe a little bit more, made an agreement in Paris. And my real question is, how can we as cultural actors play a role in the activism role in our respective countries and also regionally, internationally, to help kind of push this and keep our governments accountable of this agreement, because they signed it.
Okay, that's a very, very good question. Why don't you pass the microphone over to the woman who wanted to ask a question? Let's file that away. But I do want to say this. That is a question also to answer in the workshops. Very brief answer.
Very brief. So art is a global language, and plastic pollution, for example, is a global problem. So trying to integrate global issues into your practice that, while maintaining the specificity of your focus, on one hand, it's this. We need to do both. And artists are being called to the table to engage in these conversations and dialogues for a reason. We're no good as artists unless we're sensitive. So
I think
use our sensitivity.
It also brings back this other point, which is if you want to be an artist advocate, you have to be trained as an artist and as an advocate. Mm-hmm. You can't think, well, I'm going to train my whole life as an artist, and I'm just going to know how to advocate. And so creating opportunities to do that makes a lot of sense. Yes?
Hi, my name is Zainab Al-Hashimi. I'm an artist born and based in the UAE. And I just want to thank all the fantastic examples of how we can show universality through art, because each one of the examples fellow artists that are showing their artwork through symbols of life, symbols of history and the past is very important, because as they said, we are always forgetting what we have learned from the past, and we are doing the same mistakes again. So through what I do and so many of you guys is we are in the time where we need to collaborate. So arts can't work without science, science cannot work without technology, technology cannot work, and it's the same thing. So I just want to echo on what they said, because this is a much more deeper conversation that I think I'd love to discuss more about, which is the idea of art, science, and what not a lot of people could relate to, but spirituality. This is what we're talking about, because knowing self through art is a universal connection through different cultures, of course.
Very powerful.
So just want to, thank everyone for this discussion, because it's very important. I did not expect it to be discussed in the summit, but this is a very, very, very important conversation that you guys are having here.
Thank you, and that's the best summary we could possibly have for this panel. Please join me in thanking all of them.